Good morning and God bless. Welcome to the Saturday Town Hall edition of The Front Page. I am Dominique DiPrima and we welcome you. It is a beautiful Saturday in Southern California and we are talking today about the election, all about the election under COVID-19. That's our topic today. So pleased to introduce, and I'm going to jump right into it. But first, I want to, of course, thank our sponsors, brand new sponsor, Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas of the 2nd District, Community Build, the City of Los Angeles, the Independent Professionals Association at indiework.org, and of course, Council President Emeritus Herb Wesson Jr. So pleased to bring into the conversation this morning our Secretary of State for California. He's committed to modernizing the office, increasing voter registration and participation, and strengthening voter rights. Also born and raised in the San Fernando Valley, Secretary of State Alex Padilla, thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Dominique. Good to be back. It's been a couple of months, and I agree it's a beautiful morning in Southern California, but it's going to be hot today. I know it's triple digits out here in the valley. I'm
sorry. Make sure you hydrate, Mr. Secretary.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what a fortuitous timing for you to be with us this week, just considering all of the headlines about the election. I mean, you know, it feels as a voter and a regular person that doesn't get the behind the scenes information that you probably have, like our very election is in peril at this moment.
I mean, it certainly can feel that way and look that way. And look, I take everything that's happening very, very seriously, because if we just think back a few weeks, a lot of us are still mourning the passing of Congressman John Lewis. And as we reflect on his legacy, you know, we remember that, our right to vote is, in many ways, very sacred, right? It's the most precious of our rights, because it's when we exercise our right to vote that we can protect all of our other rights. But that right to vote is under attack in so many ways. Just the last few days alone, you know, you're talking about whether it's Trump's attacks on vote by mail, or whether the Postal Service has the resources they need to do the job, including delivering ballots this November. People are rightful to wonder and have questions. So let me just start with that and explain to why I think we're still going to be okay in California because of how we go about the elections. You know, this November, in our effort to try to keep everybody safe from COVID, we're going to go ahead and mail ballots directly to every active registered voter in advance of the election. And we mail them early, you know, so folks will start looking in their mailbox the first week of October for their ballots. Of course, if you register to vote afterwards, you know, we'll send them out on a rolling basis, but most folks will get their ballot early with plenty of options on how to return it. You know, you can do it by mail. You don't even need stamps anymore. We cover the return postage. Of course, you can drop it off in person to any voting location if that is your preference. But for folks who mail them in, we encourage you to mail it in early. But the law in California says as long as it's postmarked on or before Election Day, we're going to give it a few more days to arrive, even if it's after the election, as long as the postmark is on time. And we're still going to count your ballot. Your vote will still count. We're extending that deadline by a couple of weeks just to build in any possibilities of delays at the Postal Service. So just want folks to know that despite the threats to the Postal Service, we're preparing just in case.
You said it, I didn't. No, I said it, you didn't. So we have Trump-proofed our elections here, sounds like a little bit, in the state of California. People have questions for you already, 520-KJLH, 520-5554. And actually, I have some questions that have come up with listeners during the week that I want to throw at you as well. But first, I want to bring on a congressional appointee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. He was appointed by Congress in 2006, reappointed in 2010 and 17, and formerly a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Michael Yaki, welcome.
Welcome very much, Dominique. And I'm proud to say that I'm part of the crew at your old stomping grounds at Cron 4 TV in San Francisco. I'm their political analyst as well.
Oh, that's right. Wow, you're taking me way back for my Southern California family. That was where I started in media at KRON TV, NBC San Francisco. Bay Area people are everywhere. Kamala Harris. But
Governor,
Governor Newsom, exactly.
We represent.
So, what is your biggest concern that you want voters and especially activists like those that listen to us here on KJLH to know about the 2020 election in November?
Well, I mean, we're blessed with leaders like Secretary Padilla, Governor Newsom, and others who take voting seriously, prepare, and do what's needed to be done in order to help people vote during the pandemic. That's not the case everywhere else in the country. And to the extent that we have people out there who can get their ballots in real early and go out and help, there are going to be a lot of places across this country where we're going to need to help get brown and black people to the polls, because ever since the Supreme Court got taken over by the conservatives, it has gotten harder and harder and harder for black and brown people to vote in this country. And for us to take this country back to win, we're going to need to do everything we can to help get people to the polls. Because despite the pandemic, you got states like Texas, Louisiana, a lot of other places that have instituted barriers. They've stopped early voting. They've reduced early voting. Kentucky had one precinct open in their primary for everyone in Lexington. Everyone. One precinct. And it's something where we're going to need a goodwill and the help of people like your listeners to get out there and help these people and help them in their struggle to get their vote counted and their voices heard.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And Secretary of State Alex Padilla, I never vote early. I'm one of those people that waits till the last minute, reads up on everything, and then goes on election day. But last time I voted in the early voting period. I think we have 10 days prior to election day, and there was no line. It was super easy. I felt very, very smug when I saw the long lines of people waiting. That may be more important than ever, right?
Right. No, and so look, we are going to be emphasizing vote by mail, as I said a minute earlier, but don't mistake it for an all vote by mail only election. We know that there is a lot of people who need that in-person opportunity to vote. So, first of all, working out the kinks for what happened to a lot of Los Angeles voters in the primary. So it's going to be a better experience in November. It's going to be a healthier, safer experience because kind of like going to the grocery store now, it's not the same way. You got to try to physically distance, masks and gloves and sanitizer, PPE. We got to make sure that polling locations are safe for in-person voting for both voters and the poll workers. We may not have 10 days of early voting, but we're going to have at least 3 days of early voting plus election day itself. So we're trying to spread out the foot traffic over the course of 4 days, try to keep those lines short, try to keep those crowds small, keep everybody safe if they choose to vote in person. But certainly encouraging people to vote early if possible, either by mail or at a vote center.
That's good stuff. I had someone call in last week asking, is there any online voting in the state of California?
Good. I get that question all the time, right? We do everything else online. There's an app for everything else, but not voting, and no time soon, frankly, for security reasons. The sanctity of the votes. And, we still hear too many stories about, who got hacked, whether it's a private company, a retailer, the government itself, the DNC 4 years ago. So unless or until the Internet can guarantee the security and privacy of our votes, we're not doing it online. But it doesn't mean we're not doing other things to make it easier, including, sending a ballot to you at home and letting you return it with a prepaid return postage, or letting you vote over the course of several days. You can go anywhere in your county to vote, all those sorts of things.
Well, I love it when I get the answer right, because that's pretty much what I said. Let's go to Kevin calling us from L.A. Good morning, Kevin. You're on with the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, and a Congressional Appointee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, Michael Yaki.
Hi. Thank you, Dominique, for taking my call. And hello, Secretary of State. and your other guests as well. I wanted to ask you a question in regards to voting. I'm sure California, by us being a blue state, we're pretty much good, even though we definitely have to tell everybody to get out to vote. My concern is when I hear other news media outlets talk about, what's going on with the U.S. Post Office and them not being able to count all of the votes in the
right. So what's your bottom line here? I mean, everyone's freaking out about the post office right now and the fact that it seems like there is an attempt being made to steal this election. But what's your question about it?
Yeah, so my question is that for the Secretary of State, I know California is pretty much good, but is he working possibly with other Secretaries of States to make sure that they're okay as well? Because we definitely know that Biden and Harris will win in California, but in the other states, that's where, the
Got it. Thank you, Kevin. So, Secretary Padilla, are you working with other states? Can California help other states make sure they don't get robbed this election?
Sure. So I'll give a couple of examples, but first, a couple of California-specific items I want everybody to know. First, we have a lot of information and resources about voting in one location at vote.ca.gov. So it could be you need to register to vote. You can do that there. You need to find your polling place closer to election. You can find it there. Questions about cybersecurity. You can find it there. One of the tools there is verifying your registration status. So if you're registered to vote, want to make sure you're verifying your information, make sure your address is current, for example, before we start mailing out all these ballots. Want to make sure we're mailing it to you at the right address so that you get it on a timely basis and have plenty of time to return your ballot. If you need to update your voter registration, you can do it there at the Register to Vote function and make those updates. So I think, like you said, not to take anything for granted. We're vigilant, but we're in much better shape in California because we also have a lot of experience with vote by mail and now in early voting, et cetera. I am in touch with my colleagues in other states on a daily basis. And I want to say both Democrat and Republican. And while there's still some states resisting doing the right thing for voters, most states are trying to do the right thing. So for states that are just now expanding vote by mail, we get the questions of, remind me how the signature verification thing works again, or, do we need to buy more equipment if the volume's going to be up? How do we work with the post office like you guys do in California? So trying to be a good share of information with my colleagues across the country. But, one of the things that I want us all to be very mindful of, every election night in California, we have a pretty good idea for how most contests are turning out. But we know that it takes literally a couple of weeks to finish counting ballots in California. First of all, we're a much bigger state, so there's a lot more ballots to count than, Connecticut or Iowa. But also, with more vote by mail, it takes a little bit longer to process. We want to make sure that the signatures match up as part of protecting the integrity of vote by mail. So in other states that are just now expanding vote by mail, it may be taking them longer than they're used to finish counting ballots. And we need to make sure that both the press and the public are aware of that, because if the race is too close to call in states like Michigan, Ohio, Arizona, Pennsylvania, there's a chance that on election night we don't know the final results in a presidential contest. And maybe it's not completely clear the next day or the day after that. So if it's taking a little bit longer to get final results, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because we're trying to make sure every ballot gets counted. So we need to be patient and not buy into the lies and the conspiracy theories that might come from you-know-who. But in other circles, let's just hope it's a blowout. And it is abundantly clear what's going to be happening on election night. So just wanted to call out that dynamic, because we're familiar with it in California, but other states, as they're changing their elections because of COVID, it could cause a little bit of delay in the vote count.
Michael Yaki, Commissioner, you've served as a senior advisor to Nancy Pelosi, and of course you're on the Civil Rights Commission. I think the fear is that, our rights are not just being quietly and gradually eroded, but you see these pictures of piles of mailboxes on the back of trucks. And I'm going, can't we sue? Can we get a restraining order? How can we keep, and then we hear about the post office going away, which is not just mail. I mean, it's a hub for a lot of people. People rely on it to pay bills and all kinds of things. What can we do as citizens, as concerned citizens?
I think we got to make some noise. I think we really got to make some noise. This is something where I've always thought that Trump has an idea but doesn't know how to execute. If he had done this in October, we would be in real trouble. He does this in August. Well, what does that mean? It means you've got 2 months before the election. And what's going to happen? People's medicine isn't going to arrive, right? People's bills are going to be being paid late. Things like that are really going to start happening, and that's going to start creating a real pain, not just to our people, but to people who are in the red states, in the rural areas. You've got a lot of farmers who depend on the U.S. mail to get them their seed, to get them their medicine, to get them the tools that they need. If they're going to start blaming somebody. So this isn't actually a really smart move by the president, and I think enough uproar by the people is going to help push this back, because when you punch the Postal Service, you're like punching Santa Claus in the face. They have a 91% approval rating, right? It is just not. You're just picking a fight with the wrong institution. But let me go back to something that Secretary Padilla was saying. There are two problems with this election. One is the access to the mail-in ballot. Right now, you have a lot of states who are saying, well, you need a witness or you need a medical excuse. It's not going to. They're not all leaders like Secretary Padilla in terms of just sending the ballots out. They make it harder. And if you're, say, if you've got a family member who's diabetic or has a heart condition, and you want to stay home and take care of them, you don't have a medical excuse. You got to go out there and go vote, and possibly catch COVID. That's one of the things that people are worried about. So making that access issue is important. The second one is, of course, the Postal Service and whether or not they get there in time, because not every state has a law that states that if it's postmarked the day of the election, it can count. For a lot of states, it has to be received by the day of the election. That's like Ohio. That's like Texas. That's other places. So, this is you can see right now that when Trump says the election is rigged, well, he's rigging it for him. It's not being rigged against him. He's trying to rig it for him, and they've been doing this ever since the Shelby decision gave states like Texas and Louisiana and all those places in the South the ability to start tearing down the Voting Rights Act, and which was the life work of John Lewis before he died. He wanted to get those protections back in the Voting Rights Act, and if enough people of goodwill and good nature come out in November and we take back the House, the Senate, and we elect Kamala Harris and Joe Biden into the White House, we can do that.
Okay, so the pressure points, as far as what you're talking about, because so many people are upset and they do want to make a call or something, a petition or something. The pressure point would be our Congress people, be the president's office, maybe,
Yeah, I think Congress is probably the best. I would have them call if they're upset and they want to take action. Your viewers, I know, are very active. Tell them to call their friends and relatives in other states and help them. It's very easy to find out, on the internet who someone's congressman or congresswoman is. Very simple, and just have them call their friends and relatives and say, "Hey, you want to help yourself out? Call this dude or dudette and tell them to get the Postal Service back on track. Tell them to call their state rep or their state senator and say, support changing the election law now so that any ballot cast postmarked the day of the election will get counted. Change the laws regarding signatures and expand early voting. Do the things that need to be done to make sure everyone will count." And what's kind of crazy about this, Dominique, is that you and I and the Secretary both know that in the old days, the reason that the Democrats relied on get out the vote, getting people to the polls, is because we knew the Republicans had the big advantage in vote by mail. And here Trump is trying to destroy vote by mail and destroying basically part of his own base. So it just doesn't work out. He just doesn't think.
Doesn't make sense.
Dominic,
yes, Secretary Padilla.
Let me just add one more thing, and I know we're up on time here. But just one important other tool that's on vote.ca.gov. You can now sign up. You can click this button called Where's My Ballot and subscribe to get text message alerts, email alerts, or phone message alerts on the status of your ballot as it's working its way through the Postal Service, both on its way to you, the voter, when it's on the way back to the county when you mail it back. And imagine, Dominique, getting a confirmation message that your ballot was received and counted. It's great for transparency, great for accountability of the post office, because we'll be able to detect any delays or bottlenecks. And I think it's great for peace of mind in vote by mail. But the most important thing I want to make sure your listeners hear is make a plan. We're going to encourage vote by mail. There's in-person voting if you need it. But whether it's by mail or in person, make a plan. Do it early. Don't chance it. We know this important election. We know how critical it is. Make your plan on how and when you're going to vote. Get it done. Let's make the change we need in 80 days.
Well, California Secretary of State Alex Padilla and Commissioner on Civil Rights Michael Yaki, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Dominique.
Continuing our conversation on the election, all about the election under pandemic. It is the Front Page Saturday Town Hall edition, live from the 1-800-THE-LAW 2 studio, Radio Free 102.3 KJLH.